What's happening, everybody? My name is Peter, aka Pants Down Pete, and welcome to What Makes It Great, the show where I tell you why I think a different game is great every episode. We'll take a dive into old and new games and kind of break them down into key qualities and features and really figure out what makes them great. Today I'd like to talk about The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was released in March of this year for both the Nintendo Switch and the Wii U, it being a key launch title for the Nintendo Switch. It's being considered one of the greatest Zelda games ever, and even one of the greatest games of all time, receiving numerous perfect or masterpiece scores from various news and review outlets. It's been hailed for charting a bold new direction for the Zelda franchise and future Zelda games, with its open world design that's really focused around exploration and player freedom, and it's received a lot of praise for the way that it's reworked a lot of the sacred Zelda traditions into that new framework. I deeply enjoyed my experience playing Breath of the Wild, as I know did many of my friends and many other gamers across the world, and after a little bit of time away and a little more thought, I think I can attribute that to the following. First off, mobility. Secondly, the living world and spectacle of the game. And third, the way the game plays to varying levels of engagement. So let's start with mobility. With various mechanics and rules, Nintendo creates a system of movement and navigation that always feels tactically and emotionally satisfying, never really tricks or confuses you, and it always encourages you to continue exploring. And there are two sub-points I really want to focus on here. The first is the up-down of climbing and gliding. I think at first I kind of took this design choice for granted, but I think it's brilliant the way that climbing and gliding play to one another. They both sort of enable the other to exist and to make sense for a player to choose to do. If gliding didn't exist, climbing up a mountain just to climb back down would be a hassle. But if climbing didn't exist, you wouldn't be able to get to these heights, from where gliding is so exhilarating. And then my second subpoint here is how strictly the game adheres to its own rules. And while at first all of these rules seemed a little bit limiting, I think once you really learn them all and get them down, the game never strays from them. So you always know what you can and can't do in a situation. And when what you can do is so much and what you can't do is so little, the options start to feel almost limitless. Now, the second overarching point I want to talk about is the living world and spectacle of the game. Breath of the Wild's Hyrule is vast. It's huge. It's almost intimidatingly large. There's some pretty crazy map comparisons on Reddit and stuff, and it's pretty nuts to see how big this map is compared with maps of previous Zelda games, of other games like Skyrim, like The Witcher, but it's giant. And even so, I've never felt more at home or cozy in an open world than I have in Breath of the Wild. It's just filled to the brim with so many colorful characters and creatures and breathtaking sights and events. So often I find that open world games fill me with some sort of existential dread or something in the endlessness of the possibilities and options that you have in those kind of games. But Breath of the Wild just made me feel relaxed and at home in Hyrule, and I just like spending time there. And the fact that it was so big was never a deterrent from playing it for me. And even though it's a single player game, it never really feels lonely. And furthermore, the world is just breathtaking. From the ambient piano soundtrack that subtly fills your experience, to all the gorgeous vistas and views of the world, to the first time I saw Farash flying out of Lake Hylia, Breath of the Wild is a great reminder of how stunning an arrangement of pixels on a screen can really be. And the third and final point I want to discuss is the way that the game plays to varying levels of player engagement. I rarely found myself tiring of the game because there was always something to do that matched up with the amount of time that I was willing to invest playing. If I wanted to play for 30 minutes, I could just pop over to a new shrine I spotted the other day and finish it. I could hit up a goblin camp to resupply my weapons. I could see about that cave I spotted yesterday while I was exploring something else. But if I was trying to sink in, 5 hours on a Saturday afternoon, I could fully explore an area I've already seen. I could make a move in the story and go defeat a divine beast. Or I can just string some of the quicker low engagement tasks together and spend an afternoon hunting shrines. There are just so many options for both shorter and longer tasks, and that kept me glued to my Switch for months. And so that's my take on Breath of the Wild. There's plenty more in between that I loved about the game, but for me, what really made it great were these three things. The mechanics of mobility that enabled and encouraged exploration, how alive the world felt and how breathtaking some of its sights could be, and the way in which it played well with all levels of engagement, be that half an hour or 6. I'd love to hear what you think made Breath of the Wild great. So please, if you feel like sharing, leave a comment down below and I'll try to get back to you. Well, thank you all so much for watching. This was my first video and I had a great time making it, and if you had an okay time watching it, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and stay up to date on my videos to come. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.